in West Africa. At least 3 coup d'etats in 18 months. With our guest already in the studio, Emmanuel, Mr. Slow and Steady Facts, John Ako, Dr. Ako, the man who doesn't speak with water in his mouth, and Waingeh Ferdinand, born to speak, as well as Labaran, whom we have nicknamed as Mr. Focus. We are also to be joined via Skype by Enoaku, who is a researcher at LIGS University in the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, however you're watching, this is Minute in Africa. You can watch us online by searching My Media Prime TV, liking our page, and sharing the information to as many groups as possible to invite other people to watch. After 44 matches filled with numerous upsets, countless heartbreaks, endless controversies, and some breathtaking, the Africa Cup of Nations has reached the business end after the conclusion of its round of 16 phase. We had 24 teams that entered the tournament with dreams if the trophy are left with the ability of winning much coveted trophy. Defending champions Algeria, 2-time winners Rico, and 4 times champions Ghana are among the big name casualties to have the competition at an early stage. Welcome to 90 Minutes. Time for me now to introduce our guest, Emmanuel, Senior Africa Analyst, Mr. Slow and Steady.
When I say support, we do not need that. We do not mean that he's supporting us the way people would think. What we need in 90 Minutes in Africa is knowledge. And the knowledge that we need in 90 Minutes in Africa is the knowledge that can free Africa. And so we welcome such knowledge from such knowledgeable people. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much. And also an opportunity for us to welcome Ferdinand Waingeh. Ferdinand Waingeh, the man who was born to speak. The guy who wanted to have an event like weddings and all of that. This is the man to have when it comes to MC events. He's made a name in that domain here in Cameroon, and also a journalist. Ferdinand Waingeh, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. This is your second time on 90 Minutes in Africa.
Exactly, Mr. Boh. It's my second time on this show. It's always a pleasure, sharing ideas that can liberate the African continent. It's always a pleasure analyzing, scrutinizing, and perusing through issues that are very, very primordial for the growth of the African continent. And I want to say a special hi, special good afternoon to all those who are watching this program from all over Africa and from all over the world. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And we have here Dr. Ako, John Ako, the man who doesn't speak with water in his mouth. He is a regular guest on 90 Minutes in Africa, consultant with My Media Prime TV, The African Eye. Doctor, thank you for coming today.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Once more again, we're about discussing Africa and issues affecting the continent. Again, once more, we see within the week that Africa is beginning to stand up. Somehow we can equally applaud TV programs like 90 Minutes in Africa in creating this spirit, and that the continent of Africa belongs to only the African citizens themselves, and that nobody will develop this continent except the people of this particular precious continent. We are equally calling on friends and all those who seek peace throughout the world that Africa needs peace, Africa needs stability, Africa needs a kind of policies of its own democracy from the fatherland that can carry African to measure up with the other parts of the world. That the African story should not be told by others when distorted for lack of knowledge and even giving it the name the Dark Continent because of absence of knowledge. We know Africa and we stand for Africa, and we will continue to die for Africa.
Thank you, Dr. Ako, John Ako. And joining us from Boya is a researcher and political analyst, Labaran Bekondo. Labaran Bekondo, thank you so much. I think this is at least your 4th or 5th time here on 90 Minutes in Africa. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, my host. It's always a pleasure for me being here to talk African affairs. It's wonderful. I salute Africa. I salute all those in Mali, all those in Guinea, all those in Burkina Faso for taking the giant strive to free themselves from the clutch of Western influence. At least what we do here in My Media Prime TV is actually heard and practiced in other parts of Africa. And the litany of coup d'etats that have been going on, I'm sure it will continue to free us from the spank of the West. So I appreciate the move, and I want to see more of that taking shape in the continent.
Thank you so much, Labaran Bekondo. And of course, just to confirm here that we have lots of viewers from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea who watch My Media Prime to understand. Some of them will write to me, are already beginning to take some lessons in English because they want to understand programs like 90 Minutes in Africa with videos that go viral every week across Africa. And I think we are trying to raise a new level of awareness across the continent. Just to indicate here to Elijah Enoaku, who is researcher with LIGS University, joining us there, and a Pan-Africanist, we want to indicate that we are monitoring you. It's just that we are having some little issues with your sound, and so immediately we fix that, you are going to be joining us. Please kindly bear with us. And also to tell our social media soldiers to go to our page, My Media Prime, and share as widely as possible. AFCON 2021, beauty of the games and the controversies. Of course, we are already at the quarterfinal stage of the competition, Mr. Emmanuel. We start with the beauty of the games before we move to the controversies. Today at 5 p.m., Cameroon is going to be clashing with the Gambia.
You know, there is nothing more beautiful than what is happening in Cameroon at this time. Football, which happens to be one of my best games. Sometimes I define it, I look at it to be a beautiful girl that was raised, nurtured in Cameroon in 2021. We had, from the beginning, we had very handsome 24 boys who were eyeing for this beautiful lady. And of course, along the line, those with empty pockets had to drop off. Those who could manage to see how deep their pockets were are still eyeing up to this beautiful lady. And of course, Cameroon happens to still be one. What can we say? We can only wish them what they wish themselves. The beauty of the game has been so beautiful in a way that even those who never wanted the occasion to rise in Cameroon are at the front line today, appreciating. If Cameroon has succeeded to host a Nations Cup where people die in the evening and the next day others are in the field, it shows the beauty of the game. It shows that the unfortunate incident did not stop the beauty of the game and the occasion. And so it is time for Africa to enjoy Cameroon. It is time for Africa to say, yes, Cameroon can do it, because hosting a tournament of such magnitude for the first time with 24 teams is another story well told in the African continent. Despite the fact that the story could not have been completely told on a positive sheet without a red pen. But then, if we were to weigh it on the balance, I think that the blue pen overweighs the red pen.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Waingeh Ferdinand, so far we have seen beautiful football. We have seen teams that were once looked upon as, I don't want to use the word outcasts in football.
Underdogs.
They have been underdogs.
Yeah.
They have come to the forefront. We've seen, of course, we've seen the beauty of the games. We've seen the beautiful stadiums in Cameroon, whereby people are able to watch and say, oh, we have beautiful stadia here in the country.
Of course, Mr. Elvis, it's a very beautiful moment in Cameroon. Cameroon is a very, very beautiful nation in itself. Africa in miniature, they've proven that during this AFCON. We can find a stadia across the national territory, from Garoua to Limbe to Bafoussam to Yaoundé to Douala. Everything shows that this nation was really, really prepared for this tournament. The kind of hotel services that we have, the kind of ambience in terms of the cultural diversity of our country is adding more pomp and fanfare to this tournament. I want to say that this tournament has brought light to the nation, and we have proven that as a nation, united in our diversity, we can do better if only we stand together to work together. The ambience that we find in the streets of Cameroon today was not what we had before the start of this tournament. Driving here today, I saw the ambience on the streets, the vuvuzelas making some noise all along the streets, the green, red, yellow, everywhere. And I think that it is a moment of discovery for Africa. It's a moment for Africa to discover, you know, the potentials of this great nation. It's a moment of unity, because I look at this tournament as a game that unites the entire continent, and that is a moment for us to share. Cameroon has everything that it takes, and I'm seeing that the enjoyment and those who are participating in this tournament are crediting Cameroon for a tournament well organized, despite the fact that we might find challenges left and right. It is normal because we are human, and you know, mistakes and errors can always pop up. But I want to say the beauty of this tournament is one that we cannot underestimate, and that it continues to flow in the beautiful cities of Limbe. You find even the touristic attractions in the country, they're pulling more beauty to the tournament so far. And to say that a team like Gambia, one of the smallest mainland nations in Africa, find its way to the quarterfinals of this tournament, it is a very interesting thing, and it's a great revelation. Finding a team like Cape Verde that came for their first time to the tournament, you know, pushing through to the second phase and giving Cameroon a very difficult one, you know, before qualifying for the quarterfinals. I think that these are revelations in the tournament and beautiful moments that we cannot fail to talk about.
Thank you so much, Waingeh Ferdinand, for that. Dr. Aku, John Aku, we've been monitoring what what people are saying. Of course, Cameroon is organizing this competition, 24 teams for the first time in Africa. Under very difficult circumstances, 24 teams, at a time when the world and Africa is battling with the coronavirus, variants coming up left and right. And of course, Cameroon has been able to do something. Can we say impossible n'est pas camerounais, as they say in French?
Yeah, in fact, the word impossibility does not exist. And even if it does, it is a factor instead to push human beings to accomplish the wishes of their minds. Honestly, Cameroon was given to host the African Nations Cup sometime in 2019. And I believe equally that timely, God acted well in giving Cameroon more additional time. Imagine the country which hosted in place of Cameroon. We are talking of Egypt, and that when Egypt did so, it hosted under the old model of just 16 teams. And I believe being the first 24 with more ample time, it is instead a factor to Cameroon, meaning Cameroon has been one of those countries we are thinking might have equally profited from the financing in constructing the state infrastructures and even developing some sites that were not developed. Cameroon as a country has its own internal quabbles and a lot of worries of whether they were going to host. But then, one of the things which we have seen is that the beautiful game is going on and has been witnessed by a lot and thousands of others. Media coverage equally throughout the world support that the beautiful game, that the African game is beautiful. A lot of foreign commentators and journalists or TV panels are worried why those considered as the most outstanding players out of African continent, obviously playing in the major leagues in Europe, are unable up to this date to show their limelight, thinking they were maybe in Manchester United or Real Madrid or playing for Chelsea, would have been the same thing playing the African soil. But I'm telling you that in Africa we run a lot, people eat a lot of pepper, some people depend on natural leaves, and that they are not being fed by Quakers or food from McDonald's. And so the speed is different, the energy is different, and even the engagement in the game. And that is why it's not surprising for us to find countries like Equatorial Guinea and the Gambia, and why not the Burkina Fasos, presently equally at the very level of the game. Those who depended on high standard, classical human resources from the big teams like Nigeria have been ushered out in a very humbled and more downgraded manner. To hopes and fallen crisis in Africa, we could equally see that people like Ghana, with their UPLAs and in fact, the heritage they have built around, was unable to take them through. It is only coming again that in Africa, I'm telling you that one thing remains certain, that we believe in our small juju and we believe on our small local leaves, that in every tournament, there is a possibility of this rumor. And so many countries who are unable to play in the field might equally be playing out of the field. And that has caused a lot of havoc within the game. And I'm telling you that maybe by the end of the game, we are going to still see a lot of those witch doctors, like what we have been impugned. You can imagine the incident in Limbe where the referee blew the final whistle 3 times before even the match could end. Those are some controversies that give some of us Africans as football lovers continue to observe and see that it's a reality, because we have done so and we have controlled that in many places. The referee has been confused, the players are confused, the ball at times becomes so heavy than the weight originally the scientist thought has been manufactured. This is the game in Africa, and I was very happy that the president of FIFA, Infantino, said there is a need to allow Africans to play football within their own continent rather than crossing the Mediterranean. And if we have to do so, there is a need to involve more expenditure, develop the infrastructure, and give them the facilities so that more lives will not be lost at the Mediterranean Sea. We have the beautiful game in Africa, and I will tell you that at this particular moment, the African Cup of Nations is a hope, it's a jamboree for the whole continent. It is a lesson to the world, and we are willing and watching to see who will be the next star, who is going to take after Madio Sane and Salah at this particular time when we think that the very superstars are at the peak in the European clubs. Is there hope for the new African rising star after this particular Nation Cup? There are still many hopes, and I believe the African continent will once more prove right to the entire world.
Thank you so much, Dr. John Ako, the man who doesn't speak with water in his mouth. I want to acknowledge those who are watching us via Facebook. Kone Innocent Gwambi, we have Chabi Albert, Fondong Richard. I will hi to you, Fondong Richard. We want to also acknowledge Peter Kang. Peter Kang, who is watching us. Faith Irene, Fru Landrino, Peter Kang. Of course, those are viewers. Thank you, Emmanuel, and others. Please share to as many groups as possible to invite other people to watch, because many people might be fasting to have programs like 90 Minutes in Africa, but they don't know that the program already exists. Please share so that they can be able to watch and also comment so that we can acknowledge the fact that they're watching us and promoting the show. Labaran Bekondo, of course, you need to talk about the beauty of the games, because on 90 Minutes in Africa, we are fair and balanced. We are looking at the positive side before we go to the dark side. So far, what has been of interest to you as far as this AFCON is concerned?
The infrastructure possessed by the country. When the games began, more particularly in Olembe, I actually enjoyed the stadium I saw. I enjoyed the hotels. I found myself most of the time downloading the sites in my phone because they were just so beautiful. The government too tried a lot to see that these things were realized. And the continent, the people who are in Cameroon, is a mixture of people. Gambia, Cape Verdes, the people from Comoros. The beauty is there. The Africa in a miniature that we know Cameroon is actually manifested in this game. So it's a wonderful place, a wonderful competition. The beauties are just laudable. And I'm sure those who are in Cameroon are actually enjoying it. This is Africa in a miniature indeed.
Thank you so much, Labaran Bekondo. Emmanuel, I think it's time for us now to talk about the controversies so far. We've had so many controversies about the game that is the Africa Cup of Nations 2021 edition that is going on in Cameroon. I want to also use this opportunity to extend our heartfelt condolences to those who lost their family members and friends and relatives during the stampede at Olembe Stadium in Yaoundé. It's been a sad moment. Emmanuel, I think we need to give maybe some few minutes of silence to them before we continue. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue with the program. May their souls rest in perfect peace. Emmanuel, this is really a very, very sad event at a time when we were celebrating African football. Someone moved to the stadium to watch a match, and at the end, the person ends up in another world. How I'm sure it was very, very sad at the end receiving this kind of information.
No, any human being who still has the normal feelings must have received it, of course, as a sad news. We know that we are in Cameroon, and of course, before I continue, we must appreciate the government of Cameroon to have struggled to do everything to push through to see that the AFCON, which was so much in doubt, so much a doubt to many, came to a realization on the Cameroonian soil. That's the first thing I should say. But we regret the fact that as the government was struggling to make sure that AFCON remains or becomes a reality in Cameroon, the government lost sight of the fact that there were a lot of things that were supposed to be put in place. I cannot imagine from what we gathered, the opening match when the president was in the field and all the presidential guards, there was calm everywhere. There was total order everywhere. There was no disorder. And I was tempted to ask myself, is it because the president was on the pitch that day? Does it mean that he was supposed to be coming to the field every day? Of course, some of us Cameroonians would have loved to say they say he is #1 sportman. And being so active as President Biya has been, because he's active, for those who see that he's active, at least once in a year we see him active. I would have thought that he could continue to be active by coming to the field every day. If at all, that would have maintained a permanent calm in the field. But he went back to his silent and hiding hole. And of course, you saw what happened. There was total disorder in the field. Some say the disorder was even provoked to a certain level by men in uniform. We don't know how true that is. That is information that is flying. Because at one point, they started maybe using force or beating up people, and there was a kind of commotion and a counter reactions. It is inexplicable or explainable to anybody who reasons well. When there is a stadium, there are supposed to be entrances. That is an exit point, entrance points and exit points. I have not been to Japoma, to be honest with you, but from what we gather so far, if there are entry points into the stadium, and on a day of a match like that, I am sure that all the gates, all the entry points are supposed to be open, and then security disposed. But it seems that was not the case. And that is, Cameroonians love football. When they were getting the shouts from the field, it was like pushing their emotions. And of course, some of them started doing what we were doing. But it would be intellectually dishonest, Boh, not to point out here that acts of incivility contributed to what we saw there. Because I'm sure that it is on this platform that I said, we know there is insecurity in Cameroon, in some parts of Cameroon. But during this period of CAN, before you go out to the stadium, ask yourself, is my personal security guaranteed? Do not rely on the forces of law and order. Rely on your personal security first. Ask yourself, if I should watch the match in my house and at the end of the day I am safe, is it preferable? If I should force to go to the stadium and at the end of the day I am not safe, which one is preferable? When you must have answered yourself and you situate your mind on the safer side of it, take the one that is safer. Because I don't think the men in uniform, they are not angels. I know we used to blame them. When they do it wrong, we blame them. But they have not been given adequate training to handle such occasions. Let's be factual. When we look at countries like South Africa in 2010, I recall to my memory how the security men were given some techniques in handling people during the World Cup. And of course, except I will be challenged, I am not sure that Cameroon took time go through the same dispensation. Cameroon rather took time in building up stadiums, forgetting to know that hosting an event of such magnitude was not only about the stadiums littered everywhere. We may have beautiful stadiums, and those who are supposed to manage them or manage those who are supposed to go in and come out have not been given the right touch on what to be done. And you see that we end up making Nsah a sweet beginning that was supposed, and many people wish that it could end up as a sweet ending. But we made it Nsah along the line because of little things that we would have given them a touch.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Let us take the latest news as far as that is concerned, because the Minister of Sports of Cameroon, Nsah, has imputed the stampede on a reckless, what he describes as a reckless decision to open a gate in the face of a flood of people. Of course, 100 had gathered to watch the last 16 match between Cameroon and Comoros. Unfortunately, it was noted that some compatriots were reselling tickets received free of charge, while others were busy outbidding. Some compatriots wanted to force their way into the stadium with already used tickets. That is according to the explanation of the minister. Of course, the entire investigative report is already ready and has not been yet made public, but has been delivered to CAF, according to the minister. So the minister says that a human error was not the sole responsibility for the tragedy. A combination of factors is to be blamed. The number of security agents on duty was also insufficient. That's what he said. Waingeh Ferdinand.
Thank you very much, Boh Elvis. I'm going to be talking about some of the controversies. There are a number of them. We have issues concerning COVID-19. We have issues concerning security. We have issues related to the video assistant refereeing, how professional it is. We have issues concerning refereeing. We have social media vibes and polemics, and then we have issues of insecurity, especially in some parts of our country. The stampede that we had at the Olembe Stadium, we had 8 deaths recorded and above 38 people who were injured. Early November, the Secretary General of CAF sent a letter to the Minister of Sports, Nsah, and he expressed concerns as far as security issues towards the organization of this tournament were concerned. And I think that we have serious concerns right now with the issue of COVID-19. So many countries were affected. So many countries have been affected. And it is a question that so many people have been asking. Why is it that the nation Cameroon hosting has been spared of the COVID stuff? Many countries, Tunisia, Burkina Faso, Comoros, Cape Verde, both 18 countries participating in this tournament have been hit by this virus. But since the start of this tournament, we have not seen our country being affected by the coronavirus. Secondly, we have issues concerning security. We had training games in the southwest region of Cameroon that were not held due to insecurity. We had gunshots in Boya town that gave some atmosphere of fear to teams that were training, and you had teams like Mali that could not train for the encounter. That is something that can affect the performance of a team. And just the fact that they are playing in an area that has separatists on ground, separatists who are acting, the atmosphere cannot be the same like in areas where there is absolute peace and serenity. So I think that this issue of security in these regions too is something to cry out. Equally at the Olembe Stadium in Yaoundé, where we had the stampede, I think that the nation has enough security to be able to pull back that kind of action. If the minister is talking about, used tickets, I think that we were told that only one way in was open at that particular moment, and that's why people were, trying to force into the stadium. If there were other measures that were taken, to open up other gates leading into the Olembe Stadium, I think that we would not have had that kind of situation. And so these are some of the issues that are also worrisome. Issues like refereeing, like Doctor said there earlier, we had a referee in Limbe during the match Tunisia-Mali who had to stop the game 3 times.
And doctor was, of course, for what doctor was saying, he was insinuating under such circumstances. It's true that that some of these issues sometimes could be spiritual. The referee maybe is being manipulated by outside forces.
Yeah,
it could happen. I don't know, based on doctor's analysis.
Yes.
Doctor, you're going to come back to that very soon.
Doctor, it's like doctor understands better.
Because he had heat stroke. You know, after that he had heat stroke.
Yes.
So you know another team could be leading your team,
Exactly.
and then your marabouts can get your action.
Yeah, but
and
doctor,
try to manipulate him.
Doctor, at a certain point, is very right, because I think that before referees come into the game, they go for medical tests to be sure that they are fit. Yeah, to ascertain the fact that they are fit to handle the game. If we should have the kind of heat problem coming just at a dying moment in the game like that of
when the other team is trying to equalize.
When the other team is trying to equalize, the Tunisian team was so into the game, and the set, like the coach of Tunisia said at the end of the match, 3 minutes are really very much for anything to happen in a game, and for the referee to have stopped the game, then continue the game again, stop the game, continue the game again, at the end it was the 4th assistant referee who was coming into play. Those are some of the things that we should also be looking into. Now, we have had issues on social media. We have had social media that has been playing a lot in this tournament. The match between Egypt and Cote d'Ivoire, we would have thought that Cameroonians would have been going for Cote d'Ivoire, who is an in-law to Cameroon. Samuel Eto'o said in one of his tweets that Cameroon should be seeing Ivory Coast as a wife, and that the relationship between Cameroon and Cote d'Ivoire is a relationship of marriage, and that he is not expecting, this kind of tensions to continue to rise, and that there should be serenity. But then we saw a Japoma Field Stadium with most of those there supporting the Egyptian side, and I'm sure, and I know very well, that most Cameroonians are not very friendly with countries.
And Ivorians are waiting for Cameroonians in 2023.
They're waiting for Cameroonians in 2023, and they're waiting for Cameroonians in the match of today. So that kind of tension, those kind of tensions that come up during a game like this, they deter the image of the tournament. Those kind of things, they spoil the image of the tournament. They disturb a lot. And so I think that these are some of the things that I've seen in the tournament that could have been, avoided if some organizational strengths were put into play, to push the tournament forward.
Thank you, Waingeh Ferdinand. Before we cue in Dr. Ako John Ako, I want to know, Elijah Enoaku, can you get us, please?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can get you 5 on 5, and your voice is so clear. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining 90 Minutes in Africa. Elijah Enoaku is a researcher with LIGS University in the United States, of course, and also a Pan-Africanist and supporter, lover of 90 Minutes in Africa. Elijah, so far you've been watching the games over there. Is there any anxiety for those who are in the diaspora as far as this ongoing AFCON is concerned?
Well, there seems to be a conflict of time, because over here they're playing the games at times when people are either at work or doing something, but there's a lot of anxiety, a little bit of, I would say, mixed feelings as to the performance of the teams and all whatnot that's going on. And it's been said before that every Cameroonian is a coach, so everyone is having his own opinion about what he sees and what they think should be done. So you have about 25 million coaches in Cameroon, including those of us that are abroad, watching the match. But I would say that so far, it's been a lot of emotions in terms of what the Cup represents to Cameroon. It's been mixed feelings to the ordinary person in the street. It's been a whole host of things that have been going on, and I think you guys have been talking a little bit about that, and as time goes on, I think we'll talk about it, and I'll share my opinion, what I think about the whole issue.
Thank you so much. We're coming back to you. Now, let's get to you, Doctor. Doctor, I'm just coming back from Yaoundé, and we talk about the controversy related to COVID-19. When I was watching the match, I discovered that at one point in time, some Cameroonians started supporting Comoros, following the number of COVID-19 cases that were detected in the Comoros team, as well as the red card, the early red card, And Ferdinand was saying something about why is it that COVID-19 cases are not detected among the Cameroon team. I just give you the facts based on observations in Yaoundé and also based on reports by one Algerian journalist who seems to be enjoying her stay in Cameroon. To get in contact with Cameroonian players is not that easy. You must be tested for COVID-19, so they are not that so close to the public. And there was an allegation which I got in Yaoundé, but I tried to confirm, but at last point I couldn't confirm, whereby the Comoros national team was accused of celebrating a lot and interacting with people a lot after their match with Ghana. And those are some of the risk factors. Now, also too, Samuel Eto'o Fils came out and granted an interview with Canal Plus, whereby he said that Cameroon is not, the organizing committee is being, is under the CAF, the Football Confederation, which is CAF, and Cameroon is not the country in charge of doing the COVID-19 tests at the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations. Even if Cameroon was to be accused, maybe Cameroon would have been accused in the days when maybe Nsah was the head of CAF. The head of CAF this time around is Patrice Motsepe. I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate, but I was just trying to put some facts on the table and some other complementary information which could help us in our analysis. You know too that Comoros has also been sanctioned to pay in some thousands of dollars because of, not respecting some rules as far as it's concerned. So you could be a good player, but at one point in time, if you could be a very good employee, but if you're not respectful, if you don't follow the rules of the game, at one point in time, you might find yourself crashing out of competition. So let's talk about this COVID-19. Where you were when you were watching the match between Comoros and Cameroon, what happened when suddenly a red card was shown and there was a lot of controversy about the action to the extent that even some Cameroonians started supporting supporting Comoros?
Yeah, one thing I want you to understand, and that the people of Cameroon at times become so worrying that many Cameroonians at times may take the opposite end of the competitor. I mean, that if Cameroon is in a match with somebody and it happens, even, I just want equally to inform you that there have been a letter somewhere in Douala directed towards the international team of Cameroon that if the same type of playing, the type of game they put up in Yaoundé should be totally, it's going to be different in Japoma, because in Douala we will not condone with any misbehavior, non-engagement into the match. Imagine such a letter addressed already to the national team before the game, that if in Yaoundé they have been so lax, and that if there is anything wrong with the match today in Japoma, they will settle it at the stadium, and that they will not allow the players to even go out. So if people are not aware, that's just how Cameroonians are. To the extent, remember again, even before the tournament, what I will tell you is that some Cameroonians have even informed CAF that we are sure that we are preparing a second venue to continue this tournament, and that if Cameroon doesn't get to the final, you look for a different country to host the finals. This gives you the mind of what Cameroonians, the level of football is in Cameroon. And that will not equally deny that if we are where we are today, Cameroonians and the supporters of football have loved the beautiful game, and to them they always think like they should win. And at the time Cameroon is not winning, at the time Cameroon is not playing, I'm telling you that you see people start wooing against their own national team. It happens several times. This is what the football game is, and Cameroonians will not be different. On the side of COVID-19, I will tell you sincerely that it is not said by us. Motsepe has said that already, that when it comes to certifying whether a player or the other has COVID, there is an independent mission, there's an independent team that has been paid. The whole firm that certifies whether you are COVID positive or negative is not even of CAF, because the institution is far from CAF and is far from the Cameroon government.
I'm not cutting you short, doctor. And even at that, if you go to the hospital and you are tested for a particular illness, and at one point in time, you believe that probably the doctor is playing with your intelligence, but what happens that there are so many things that come to play, because, for example, there are some private clinics where people will be tested positive for illnesses because maybe they're having insurance and the doctors want to benefit. Some doctors, it happens, some unethical doctors might want to benefit from that. If you feel that probably you've been tested positive of COVID-19, I think you have your team doctor. You could move to your team doctor, do counter test, and then come up and say, okay, these are my counter tests that are negative, so that you have a case.
It is not even based on that. What I want to tell you is that nobody has disputed the case that the players who tested positive are not positive for COVID. The problem has been, why is the other team not reported in the like manner like others? That's what I'm saying. Nobody, no team has contested, starting with countries like Burkina Faso, Tunisia, People have forgotten that Tunisia equally played Nigeria with a lot of COVID cases, but then they ended up winning the game. The story here is that Comoros, when you come into footballers for the first time, the Comorians thought they had done a lot already by getting to the second phase of the tournament, hoping that within their level, they were not even dreaming to get there and making the results, like you said. The result Comoros had over Ghana elevated them to a level they thought they were already at the top of the African football, not knowing that it was just the beginning of the tournament. They were still at the group stage, and every African Cup of Nations is having its own story. Remember, there was a year Burkina Faso was at the top, and we just were thinking that Comorians were going to move on to a particular level to step up the tournament, and that we see them like we see the Gambians today. So they will not complain a lot. The errors, there were sanctions, were technical FIFA and CAF errors. You, the player who became the coach of the team, instead of carrying his shirt number 3, carried shirt number 16, which was the shirt of the goalkeeper that had been suspended. And secondly, only getting into the game, they came into the game 2 or 3 or 5 minutes later, when others were already with them. I mean, for the game to kickstart, there were a lot of delays. These are
which means Comoros has a lot of discipline.
Yeah, so they have discipline issues, which I think they might not have been informed, but they were aware. The federation is aware of those rules, and that is why I see they have not even contested the rules of the sanction by CAF, which means that they are in line and that they believe they made an error. They were so overzealous, too happy to an extent that they forgot that they were still in the tournament, and so kept on doing issues to them. Like I said, when you listen to a lot of commentaries that were given even by foreign media, a lot of people were condoling, they were supporting Comoros and even praising them that they did wonderful. But people have not forgotten that the same Comoros Cameroon has played during the qualifications, and Comoros have never beaten Cameroon in recent history. The least they can do is to hold a draw, and this is what we are thinking. I was even thinking to what extent magic will come. For the last 18 years in Cameroon, we are trying to see it. Ask well, for the last 18 years, whether a team has succeeded to beat Cameroon in Cameroon. The least you can do in Cameroon is to hold a draw. And we think the Comorians just did the best, but rather we sympathize with them somewhere that they never had the team. And that confused a lot of journalists thinking that they would have done better if the complete team was there. Remember, the Ivorians had a complete team, but the game went differently for them in Egypt, within the Egyptian milieu. Does it mean that the players were not there? That is football. In football, there is always a winner and a loser. And when it comes, we only need to accept. Cameroon was not there in 2006 FIFA World Cup. Just a draw with Egypt in Amadou Ahidjo Stadium. We cried, we shed tears, but the situation did not change. We're out of the tournament.
Thank you, Dr. Kojonako. Let us now get to Labara Bekondo. Lots of lessons to learn from that match between Cameroon and Comoros. With the controversial red card, but at one point after seeing and talking with referees, they confirmed that actually he deserves a red card, even though some people are saying that it's the person refereeing the match is not a robot. At one point in time, the person could be considerate and say that's why sometimes referees call up players and warn them and say don't do this again. But lots of lessons, lessons that we can also implement in our day-to-day lives. That at one point in time when you think that it is over, it is not really over. You still have the kind of inner force in you which can show that you can move mountains. We are talking about the Comorian defender who became a goalkeeper, and I'm sure that right now some teams might be thinking about hiring him as a goalkeeper. We are so talking about the kind of game that was demonstrated by the Comorians. I mean, in front of Cameroon with the home crowd, with the big names of Abubakar Shu and all of that. You know, so I'm sure I want you to elaborate on some of the lessons you learned from watching the match Cameroon versus Comoros.
Yeah, one of the lessons I learned was don't assume the law. You don't assume the law. Football is being governed by rules and regulations. And you know, as the events unfold, as things improve, so too the laws too are changing. Now, the law states any attack from behind is automatic red card. This was clear. You know, one thing, we don't know the law. We assume the law and we believe through from our ESA. But once you become a regular, somebody who reads the law and know the law, you will free yourself from a lot of things. So the goalkeeper who became the player who became a goalkeeper and carried the number 16 shirts knew the law. But they assume a lot of things. You don't assume in law. There are exceptions, yes, but you don't assume in law. The law is what is. And the law is not something that ought to be. It's the law. So don't assume the law. That is one of the lessons. And two, the lesson you can draw from that episode and to apply in our daily life is there's time for everything under the sun. There's time for everything under the sun. And in our daily life, we should learn to always put this in our minds. We must learn to always to put this in practice. That we don't assume the law and there's change, and change is permanent.
Thank you, Labaran. Before we come to Mr. Slow and Steady Facts, let us move over to Elijah Enoaku to get his own perspective. Are you there, Elijah?
I'm here.
Okay. You've just posted something on our group, the Panalists Forum of 90 Minutes Africa, and I'm smiling after reading it. You said, as we are hysterical about soccer and chances, let us take a step back and ask what are the economic benefits of this to the poor masses. It's insane to spend 13 billion francs to make everyone feel good just to turn around and tax the common man's mobile money wallet to pay for it. Can you lay emphasis on that, please?
Yes, and I will expatiate a little bit about what I mean. I know everybody's so hysterical about this. Everybody's jubilating. Everybody's doing all these things. We are so wonderful. We want Cameroon to win. So do I. Every Cameroonian loves football. We are patriotic about it. But gentlemen, let's take a step back and ask ourselves these questions. At the end of the day, when these games will be said and done, whether we take the cup or not, ask yourself that 13 billion CFA has been spent to organize this. When the GDI of Cameroon is at 0.53%, what is the economic benefit of this to the nation? Number two, you guys are talking about controversies. Let's talk about controversies. Why is it almost unique to Cameroon that when it comes to organizing anything, we will have this kind of controversies? We're going to have a stadium, people dying. Why were security measures not put in place to avoid that kind of a thing? Why are there controversies about everything when it comes to this nation, which we all love? So we take a step back and burst a little bit of our balloons and ask these questions so that when we are thinking, we think logically and say, yes, we all love this nation. We all love football. But at the end of the day, what is the benefit of this to the man on the street after 2 weeks when it's all said and done? So that is the way I look at this. I look at it from an economic perspective. Yes, we all look at it from a patriotic perspective, but we should not forget that at the end of the day, after the hysteria must have gone down, people will still remain with the same issues that they went into in this match. So again, it is not a point of criticizing my own nation, but it's a point of us, looking at ourselves, evaluating ourselves, both from a patriotic perspective and an economic perspective, so that we do not just carry the hysteria all about soccer and forget that at the end of the day, it comes down to what the common man is able to do. Put food on the table and able to feed his family. That's the whole thing I was talking about. And that's the way I look at all these games. I don't know if you get my point.
I get to Elijah Enoaku. Those who are trying to call us, please don't call us. If you want to contribute in the show, send us an SMS or send us a message on WhatsApp on the topic of the day, and we are going to read that out. Emmanuel, I think we make 1 minute each to tell the topic before we change the topic because of time, so that we move to our second topic, please.
Yes, Bo, I wanted to come in. This brouhaha that went around with bloggers and influencers on Facebook about between Cameroon and Cote d'Ivoire, it made me to be ashamed of myself. I've never been ashamed of being a Cameroonian, but for the first time, I was ashamed when I saw and read all the comments that were littered all over Facebook. And this question came to my mind. Cameroonians who have electrocuted our brains to the level where we cannot attack what we are supposed to attack and when we are supposed to attack it, and we go attacking win. In your own country, where your government officials call you dogs, you have never risen up to the Facebook to fight it back. You go fighting a comment from the Ivorians. In your own country, where you have been dragged in mud by the policeman, I did not see this euphoria fighting back on the Facebook. Who has electrocuted our brains? Cameroonians have been tailored to the level where they fight comments and they don't fight the realities of the country. At a time when we were supposed to be talking about what went wrong for people to die in Japoma, I was shocked. At Olembe, I was shocked when the instead took to their Twitters, their Facebook pages, WhatsApp groups, insulting the Ivorians for criticizing what I call positive criticism. Because if a friend doesn't love you, that friend cannot look at you into the eye and tell you that this is what is not going well, Boh. And before I give you back the microphone, Labaran raised something there a while ago. Our brother from US. The economic part of this competition is what from day one I have been shouting. What will a mother from Akwaya, what will a mother from Tukumbere benefit from this? Because we know that it boils down to the fact that Yaoundé wanted the whole world to know that everything in Cameroon is under control. But again, I am disappointed because I never knew that the regime I have in place can succeed to bring the whole continent to dine together in Cameroon, when they have been unable to bring Cameroonians on a round table dialogue to dialogue things that would have given more meaning to this AFCON. I want to think that by the end of this AFCON, they should use the same method that they used to bring all Africa into the Cameroonian soil and bring all Cameroonians on a round table to solve the problems of Cameroon. Because like our brother said, they can and the fanfare will go, but the problems of Cameroon will remain. And I'm afraid that the problems will even increase. Economic hardship will come in after the AFCON.
Thank you. I think Ferdinand, your last word on the first topic, because we are moving to the second topic to talk about coup d'etats in West Africa. Your last word on the first topic.
Yeah, I just want to queue up with Elijah Enoku, who came in so powerfully from the United States on the issue of the economic impact and what Cameroonians are going to gain from this. But I want to look at it in a different way. You know, let me make an example, refer to our little compound in the village. When I was growing up, so many people in the village used to ask my father this question: why construct a big compound like this when you have only 8 children? When all of them will leave, what will you do with the rooms? I want to think that till date, those rooms are occupied. And Waingeh's last child would have left that compound maybe some 15 years ago. But there are people in those rooms. So I want to say that the infrastructure that we have today represents a lot. It must not affect a woman in Tukumbere or a man in Bonkusu, but it's going to affect those who are in that domain. We're talking about when a nation is growing, it grows in every domain. We cannot take every little franc that the country has and invest in agriculture. We cannot take every little franc and invest in youth. We have to diversify resources. And that's why I want to say that I don't regret the fact that Cameroon is spending, you know, to construct this stadium, because they're not going to die after this tournament. They're going to be there for generations to come. We are using the Yaoundé Omnisport Stadium till date, the Amadou Ahidjo Stadium till date. It was constructed a couple of years ago, but we are still using it till date. It's still serving the nation. And if we were to be paying a ground to be used, I think we would have been spending more. So I think that this infrastructure is important for this nation. It is important for the development of football. If we're talking about having Sadio Mane's in future, we should be talking about having infrastructure that can support that happen. If we should be talking about organizing major tournaments, if you see the amount of money that South Africa spent to organize the World Cup in Africa, it gave Africans a lot of joy. Until today, those stadia in South Africa are helping South Africans. So we should be looking at it in every perspective. We should be looking at those who are hosting these teams, the hotels, those who have had jobs through this, and in every dimension. I think that I give credit to the fact that we're organizing the tournament, despite the fact that there might be some little worries too.
Today, of course, an opportunity for me, I use this opportunity to say a beautiful Saturday to Dim Albert Waingeh, who is a pedagogue, very highly respected pedagogue, one of the first persons to have noticed that I was having interest in journalism a few years back when I was still in secondary school from 3, and I moved off to him and say, I want to create a journalism club to be reporting news. At that time, JSS Ginicom, and he was so happy to mentor me and give us the resources to even go move around Ginicom, covering news, what was happening in the market and bringing it to school. And that was how we were able to develop our journalism talent. A beautiful Saturday to you, sir. We respect you and honor you. Dr. Ako John Ako, we want to talk about how we can make money from football. We have beautiful stadia in the country. We have a professional who is the head of Cameroon's Footballer Federation, Samuel Etofis. And you know the cost of a football player in the job market. If we are able to to nurture and mature talent in the country through a professional football league, and with contacts like those of Samuel Eto'o, who can bring coaches from Barcelona, Manchester United, and all the teams in Europe to Cameroon to pick up talent to Europe, I mean, don't you think it's going to be beneficial for us in the long run, in the sense that these players are going to come back and help their families back home?
Yeah, we normally, when a nation is developing, when a nation is growing, every human character or every individual matters. I'm telling you that even to the least of the level, those in charge with hygiene and sanitation around the stadiums, all around the country, they equally matter. Imagine us complaining about the staff at Japoma. We are not complaining of where we are sitting. We are not complaining of the roofing. We are complaining of the grass. If we talk, I mean, caring for the grass is equally an opportunity after the African Cup of Nations. So, which means that in all its compartment, if Cameroon is giving a past report at the end of this tournament, I believe we can lobby for other tournaments. We can lobby for that World Cup. We can lobby for other junior tournaments that would bring in revenue. We need to animate. Remember, I want to tell you that before the South Africa hosted the World Cup, there was the FIFA Confederations Cup that took place in South Africa, which means you start already experiencing the price of playing. There have been the FIFA Junior World Cup that took place in South Africa. These are the various arms that we use to what of the Commonwealth Games. They took place in South Africa. A lot of these things, when after the infrastructure had been made, is to how the investment can come back to us. Mr. Ndiwong was saying, but I'm telling you that I have expressed this worry somewhere that we lack the approach of what we call football business. Football business at this time, we expect that foreign coaches are in Cameroon, managers of clubs are in Cameroon to see whether Brazzaville Football Academy, whether Kaji Sport Academy, whether Mount Cameroon Football Club, how can I call the Jalakon Sport Academy, do they have talents here? This country we have learned. It is a great opportunity for us to be in this country. Can we get into partnership with those foreign clubs? Imagine Jalakwan Football Academy getting into partnership with maybe Barcelona, Timbi or Academy, which means that we will be training human resources first in Africa. I want you to know that this exists already in countries like Ghana and Nigeria, where in specific clubs in Europe, the amateurs league in UK will always select from Nigeria and Ghana because they have that assurance already. They are the players of quality. Look at what happened in French league and the Senegalese team or the Ivorian team. It gives us an idea that there are such agreements. In the past, we could equally see and believe that the Brazzaville Football Academy has a lot of links abroad. This is what we call developing talent and getting talent being used. If you ask the like of Samuel Eto'o, I may not be getting into details, but try to find out from Eto'o, when he started playing football in Kaji Sport Academy, was he the best? Was he having others? He called them senior brothers. In fact, when you are from Manfi, you will realize that there's a post we call the Sisiku. The Sisiku is the top of the tradition. But before the Sisiku, no matter they have given the Sisiku, there are people you met that you still admire their style and their way, and that the master.
Even though with what is going on when you mention that name.
Yeah, when you mention Sisiku, the Cameroonian political climate may be turning otherwise. I want to tell you that it is a traditional title which is given to people, but before he or she sits on that chair, there are some people who conduct him and direct him to the chair, which means those who are not even Sisiku has a better idea than you do. Cameroon is a land of talent, and I believe very strongly with the presence of Samuel Eto'o, we can attract again. This is why I was shocked. You move to the stadium, you meet a very big photo of the head of state, and I ask myself, are we in a political jamboree or we are in a football tournament? When people in Israel or Afghanistan need to know that if the image of Albert Roger Miller is used in all the flanks and corners of Cameroon, throughout publicity in the world, if the photo of even Antoine Joseph Bell, he would have been a more better attraction for Cameroon than using a political leader that others even doubt
or even
if he exists.
To indicate that Mbappe is
give honor to those who honor is due. Let's learn to respect us and the quality in the domain. Remember what happened in the opening ceremony. Those Cameroonians don't want to talk about it. Just imagine that Samuel Eto'o was at the center of the pitch on the opening match, and then you need to see the crowd and look the television, foreign, national or abroad, that were supposed to give that flavor that the game needs. But Eto'o was kept behind bars. And I love his style. The young man respected the protocol. In the whole protocol of the day, Fifth Federation, Cameroon Federation, Fika Food was not mentioned because the leader is a young man that commands popularity even more than that of the head of the state. We are refusing that it was football. We were not at the National Assembly or the Senate. We were playing football. And there are people who have made football in Cameroon a great and proud nation. We need to give them that respect. What is the reason? And of course, you know, today is also an opportunity for officials too to also, take the stage because they too will tell you that for football to grow in the country, politicians too must have played a role. I would not like to insist, but I believe somewhere that politicians have their forums. When you move to the United Nations, we need to see you at the rostrum. Don't come in a football pitch. Politicians have places where we learn. When Barack Obama comes out to speak, you are ready to listen. Yeah. That is his place. Barack Obama will not come and speak in the position of Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan. We are not saying so. Let everybody have his respect in the domain where he masters and where he is the king. Thank you, Dr. Ako John Ako. Let us move over to LIGS University and join Elijah Enoaku. He wants to react to the discussion on football business. Before we come to Labaran to conclude, and then we dive to a very interesting topic. If you're just joining us, you're watching 90 Minutes in Africa, please keep watching. If football is not of interest to you, another topic is coming up about the rising Pan-African spirit in West Africa with at least 3 coup d'etats in 18 months. React to the issue of football business. What can we do to make football profitable for Africans? Especially here in Cameroon with the stadia that we have.
Gentlemen, we all love football. But the issue that I pointed out right from the beginning is the strategy that our nation needs to employ. Just as you guys have all said, football is a business. You go to strategize and have a cup, African Nations Cup being played in Cameroon. Where are the roads for the people to live from Yaoundé to Bafoussam, from Bafoussam to Bamenda, from Bamenda to Betua, from Betua to Boya, and so on? These people are supposed to come and boost up the economy of the nation. Where are the roads for the people to come from all over the world and see these places? Where are the hotels that have been built so that people can see the edifices that Cameroon can boast of? Where are the traditional meals, our culture that is being sold all over? And where are the people going to go and see these things? How are they going to travel? Are they going to take airplane? Is it going to be Camo Air or whatever they call that? They're going to transport all over the world? No. It is the infrastructure that you've put in place to sell your country, sell your nation, sell your resources, and boost the economy. So the strategy is what I have been talking about. Somebody mentioned about the World Cup. I think it's Dr. Ako that mentioned about the World Cup that took place in South Africa. I am currently working on a project on the buses that were bought for that road. Let me tell you what went wrong there so that we can learn a lesson. The South African government bought long buses for the World Cup to transport players just from the hotels to the stadium. When they bought these buses, they had no strategy of what to do with these buses at the end of the day. And what do we have today? Those buses are lying fallow in South Africa till today. They are not able to do anything of those buses. And do you know how much those buses were bought? More than $26 million wasted because the strategy was faulty. Had it been, they have built roads because there are long buses that could only leave from the town to the airport. But the roads in South Africa are not built to contain those buses or for those buses to circulate. That's why the strategy was faulty. That's what I'm talking about. If the government or the powers that be had put in place a good strategy to monetize the African Nation Cup for Cameroon, it would have been economical. We are talking about football business now. We are talking about Samuel Eto'o and Roger Milla, all good figures in Cameroon that can boost up the image of this nation. But where are these facilities for these young people in Bamenda, in Maiduguri, in Garua, in Sang Malema? Where are the facilities for these young people to emanate and grow in the talents that they have? We do not have. So what I'm saying is that the strategy right from the onset was faulty, and it lacked people who had this kind of strategy in place. That's why we are not going to benefit from this at the end of the day. That's what I said. After 2 weeks, when the hysteria has gone down, we will come back to the same level and we will not see the benefit of this AFCON. Not that anybody is against AFCON or anything. No, we want this. But the strategy of organizing this is where my problem has always been.
Thank you so much, Elijah Enoaku, researcher on African Development, LIGS University in the United States of America. I think we've been able to handle this topic. We've been able to handle this topic so well. Time for us now to talk about our second topic of the day. The West African Regional Bloc, Ecowas. Labaran, sorry. I think you had not reacted to this. Please, it will not be justice if you don't react to this. One of the things that has been disturbing me as far as this Africa Cup of Nations is concerned is the fact that many countries are not selecting local players. We've seen that sometimes it is not even necessary to go and take foreign coaches to come and coach in Africa. And at one point, we give people the impression that if you want to make it in life, you must leave Africa. You can be the most intelligent person in Africa, but they're not going to consider you. But if you go and maybe spend 2 months in Harvard and you come back, you are the most intelligent. If you go and play in a European club, even somewhere in Cyprus, you are the most intelligent. And we are selecting 28 players, 26 players, without anybody who is playing on African soil. Is it an African imported Cup of Nations, or is really in the real sense of it? Don't you see this as a problem, Labaran?
There is a problem. But I admire one team. I'm sure that would be is it Zambia? Zambia. That team was made up of just local amateur players, with just 2 of them playing in South Africa. I'm sure, if my memory does not fail me. And they played well. This our own situation of people coming from abroad, they're better than us who are from within, is hereditary. It's something that is in our DNA. We believe that the best must come from outside there in.
Of course, outside there, it's really competitive. We are not saying that it's not bad to pick up players from Europe. Outside, it's a good idea to bring them because they come in, they have some confidence, they have seen the way the game is mastered. But I think it is, it is not justice to not have at least 1 or 2 local players so that they can at least gain this experience and take it back to their local teams. You know, at one point in time, they become frustrated and they are like, we have to do everything to leave Africa. If at all the Africa Cup of Nations has to be a Pan-African event, I think we should be also thinking towards our life.
Definitely. It's true. The Cameroon team that went for the 1990 World Cup, how many players were coming from abroad there? Most of them were picked up from Tonne Karla Club, Cotton Sport, Union of Douala, PWD of Kumba, Njiba Kem, Victor, and the rest. What they have done, those who are coming now from Real Madrid, Barcelona, have they crossed even the first round?
Okay. Thank you, Labaran Bekondo. Time for us to get into the second topic. I think we have 25 minutes to handle this topic, and if it's not enough, we are going to push it forward to next week. The West African Regional Bloc, Ecowas, has suspended Burkina Faso in the aftermath of a military coup, making it the third member nation to be punished for a military takeover in only 18 months. The announcement came on Friday and was made by the economic community of West African states and comes several days after mutinous soldiers forced democratically elected President Marc Christian Kabore to resign. The Burkina Faso military that overthrew the country's government has warned former ministers not to leave the capital or obstruct its officers during talks over how to return to democratic elections, according to one of the politicians who was present there. So that is the latest news in Burkina Faso. We are witnessing a situation in West Africa whereby military takeovers are happening. France seems to be in trouble in West Africa, and Emmanuel.
Yes, and I pray that France should continue to be in serious trouble so that at the end of the day they will leave us in peace. Boh Elvis, you will certainly agree with me that military junta or military takeovers in Africa is something that used to be feared for by the African population and everywhere in the world. But today, if it is becoming a new normal, let me put it like that, if you see a population comes out to applaud a military takeover, it means that from the judgment of the population, the military takeover is a lesser evil compared to a worse civilian leader. When a country is handed over to you, it is for you to lead the country to prosperity. But when the civilian population discovers that you are that kind of a leader that cannot take them to prosperity, and that you are bringing more hardship, how do you explain the fact that in some countries in Africa, for 38 years, the governments have spent time taxing the population and they have never done anything to pump in money to the development of that country? How do you expect the population to feel? And may I highlight here that if the population, when you look at Assimi Goïta in Mali, the population came out to support him. When you look at Doumbouya in Guinea, the population stood behind him. That is why they are still breathing. When you look at this young man in Burkina Faso,
Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Damiba.
Henry Damiba, you discover that the population is with him. It tells you that the population have discovered that...
Sorry to cut you on the Umi while our LI producer, I think we have images of the population that came out to support Paul Henry Damiba. Of course, when the coup d'etat happened, we have the images sent in by our correspondent.
Yes, Boh Elvis, I want to tell you that the military takeovers are even coming on the second place. The first coup d'etats in Africa are those coup d'etats that have been plotted with the West being the accomplice. Coup d'etats, constitutional coup d'etats, to make dictators remain in power forever. Coup d'etats for electoral fraud, to make sure that those who answer yes to the West remain there. Those are the first coup d'etats. If the military coup d'etat is coming in this time, it is because they have struggled to be patient with the civilian leaders and they have seen that nothing is changing. We have discovered that as of now, actually, as I speak to you in Africa, I am Mali, I am Burkina Faso, I am Guinea. I want that it should spread across the whole of Africa. Any civilian leader who is a sit-tight squirrel, who has refused his population to break, because there are some African leaders that if there was a way, if they were the ones sharing oxygen, they would take away the oxygen from their population and then go and throw it somewhere in Europe. It is time for these people. I think that Mali succeeded. Guinea is succeeding. Burkina Faso is succeeding. And I want to see it spread across the whole of Africa. At any country that there's a dictator that has been living there for long. And it is happening only in countries where the military still have feeling for the population. In countries where the generals, the colonies have been bought over by the regimes in place, you will not see it happen. They would rather turn the barons of their guns to be killing the population instead of taking off one man to save the whole nation. Because in essence, Boh, what we are supposed to be seeing in Africa is supposed to be a military that can protect the institutions of a country and the population, not a one-man situation, where the military is there to protect one man against the whole nation. That is why I, Ndium, stands for those people who are, I stand for the military coup with all might in me, all energy. It should spread across all dictatorial regimes in Africa, especially the French colonies. For the fear of time, I will be giving you the microphone, but hoping that we shall be coming back to this topic because it's a topic that is heavy, it's pregnant. There are a lot of evil that France has done in Africa. Just take, for example, the case of Chad. When I talked about constitutional coup d'etat, you saw what happened with Idriss Déby in Chad. And France backed it up officially with military, which was not constitutional.
Thank you, Emmanuel. The Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Damiba, who ousted Rock Christian Mark Kabore, made a speech, and Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Damiba said it is time that is Burkina Faso is going to return to constitutional order when the conditions are right. So, which means that so far now in West Africa we have 3 coup d'etats in 18 months. We have Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Damiba of Burkina Faso. We have, we also think that our producer has the images there. We have, in Mali, we have Assimi Goïta, and then in Guinea, we have Mamadi Doumbouya. Waingeh Ferdinand. Oh, your reaction to that?
Yeah.
The last name seems so funny to you.
All right, yes. I would like to say this, like Emmanuel just said, it's a very, very pregnant topic. And we are on Pan-African television, and most of us are Pan-Africanists. We like the fact that we talk about Africa and being able to build ourselves the way we can ourselves. You know, the Prime Minister of the transitional government in Mali, Choguel Maïga, said, La France nous a abandonnés en plein vol, which means that France has abandoned them while they're on the air. You know, France is a country, they have a system where they like to deal with people, leaders who understand their politics and can sit quiet when they do whatsoever thing they want to do. We have an African continent where most of the countries where you have jihadists, where you have rebels, they are countries under former French colonies. If a father says a child is ripe for marriage, and after marriage the father says the child cannot run his home and wants to run the home for that child, the father is either having something to benefit from that or made a mistake to say that the child was of age to get married. I think that Africa is of age. If they had permitted us to get married, they believed in the fact that Africa was ripe to do them things themselves. The lot of foreign pressure that we're having in Africa is what is keeping us stagnant, keeping us fixed on the same position. It is high time we move ahead. It's high time we lift the shoulders of all this and look at the horizon. There's the audacity to hope. We are powerful and we are strong enough. Mali is proving it. Mali has said, with the sanctions that you are giving us, we are going to die of the hunger, but we are going to start afresh. And we're going to move this nation forward. This is just a cream. It has just started and it is going to be moving. The wind is so fast. You don't know when it is coming, but it's happening. Because Africans are tired. The Africans are tired. Every day, soldiers are dying. Those are children coming from homes. France cannot pretend to be supporting Africa in security. You say you want to secure a nation and then you leave the nation without telling the nation that you are leaving. It means that you are leaving the nation to die. If you have an interest, come the right way. The problem is not democratically elected presidents, because I even think that they don't exist in Africa. They don't exist. It is just, we keep it in literature, we keep it in writing. But in actual fact, there are no democratically elected presidents in Africa. There's always a scheme. And behind that scheme, there are always countries standing to support a scheme. Like Emmanuel said, how can you say that you want a democratically elected government that works with the constitution, and then you go up to Chad and you are dead when they are putting in the son of late Déby who was killed in war, who is not constitutional? Muhammad Idris Deby, who is he in the constitutional organization of Chad to be the transitional president? You back him up. Why? Because you have an interest and he has your understanding. When people like Doumbouya come now, who don't understand you, people like Goita come, who don't toe your line, who don't believe in what you are saying, who are ready to stand for the people and work for the people, you don't want them. They are not constitutional. Something democratic should be done fast. It is because they want people who will take power and they will control them like toys. But I think that these African leaders, these military leaders that are coming up, I am for them 100%. And I think that if there's a way that that wind can sweep faster and touch other countries, I think that there's something better that's going to be happening for Africa. Let them take their time, build back the nation, and then let the democratic thing come after. For now, we are with them.
Thank you, Waingeh Fedi. Now we move to Dr. Ako John Ako. This is your domain. Looking at the legal aspects of it, and also looking at what the population expects and the legal part of it. But how did you receive this news? So far, we have 3 coup d'etats in West Africa, Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso. How is this going to affect the region?
One of the things I want Africans to know, that where the coup d'etats happen are not new to coups. There is nothing going to happen new to coup d'etats in those particular countries. And I believe very strongly that it is not the last, even in those same nations. We might look at it as a Pan-African move, but I'm telling you that if they have to X-ray and diagnose the agenda behind these 3 coups, you may equally somewhere come to understand that the forefathers, the colonizers, are still behind the mathematics, the technocratic agenda of these same coup d'etats. When you see the situation, you both just cited Chad, where it went silent and we are all quiet. I'm telling you that in a similar or few days, it will die quietly in Guinea, and then the new leader will come and take over. We are seeing Mali being disturbed because the colonizers are saying that the agenda drafted, they had an issue of the duration to return to civilian rule, that 5 years is too long enough. 5 years too long enough because Assimi Goïta may sign new conventions and give treaties to a new power. Remember, the Russians are highly present. If this is what we had behind Gaddafi, nothing would have happened to Gaddafi. And that is why France, which is looked upon as the smallest in terms of energy and strength militarily, compared to the Russians, cannot confront Russians directly. There are Russians' military interests presently in Mali. Yeah. Why has France not made a statement against Russian presence? It's making a statement about the Malians and the Assimi Goïta's team. There is something more to it. And what I'm telling you is that France might be thinking, met his Waterloo, but it was wrong. When Blaise Compaoré took power, somehow in 1987, it was the right that he took over from Thomas Sankara that was against French interests. People might have equally came on the streets and celebrated like we did. Remember when the head of state, President Paul Biya, took power from Ayijo, we all celebrated. 40 years after, are we celebrating in similar light? So this is what I mean, that if we don't mind our words and if we don't mind our energy to reserve and look at when God will answer us. If it is for the human beings we call today, especially when you look at the academic background of all, the military technocrats and training of all those generals, they are all former French military agents. Be very careful. The moment you school somewhere, you have that brain. The moment you went to a training or whatsoever, Doumbouya is, they call them the Dauphin the Force Militaire Française. He's in Guinea. Yeah. You don't expect anything new. I'm just telling you. No, but we might make...
Whereas it knows better.
That is what I'm telling you, that where we are, we may make the propaganda, they too. I'm telling you, statistically, philosophically, they come to stand and make hard statements against France. They will make those statements for the next 1 year. In the next 2-3 years, things will die down at the dictator. Blaise Compaoré became a puppet. He was driven by his own people. I don't think the crowd that came to support Dimbaba's movement in Burkina Faso could be compared to the crowd that chased Blaise Compaoré out of Ouagadougou. So that will tell you, when a call is from the people, the movement is different. But when a call is politically motivated, don't expect change from such political maneuvers.
Thank you, Dr.
It is just for too early for us to have ousted Kabore. Kabore just took over from a struggling economy of Burkina Faso that has suffered from the venom and poisonous hand of Blaise Compaoré and his team. And then people said they have been patient enough. I see French manipulation behind Compaoré. I see French manipulation against the ousting of Kabore. There has already been fear of what has happened in Mali. And France needs somebody they can control. When you look at statistically, they will tell you that the new leader, he has been in French academy, he hardly speaks. In the last coup they attempted, this particular individual was not too interested because the leader that was chosen, who is now in prison, attempted coup that failed in Burkina Faso. This then individual was there. He was not interested because he was not the leader to take after if he succeeds. And so now that he was put over, the same aspect reproduced. We need to be very careful. When change comes truly from the people, we need to celebrate. But when such change is instead taken out from some other quarters to the people, do not expect anything different. We might have changed the clothing of a wolf. Giving him a sheep clothing does not make that individual a sheep.
Thank you, Dr. Coup. Labaran, Bekondo, you take over. Can the population have confidence in the new military strongmen so far? Can the population trust them with the destiny of their nations?
What happened in Mali some few days ago, I saw a population that came out in support of a military man who took over. Same too in Burkina Faso and same too in Guinea. Now, there must be a change for an assessment of a political display. You can best assess positively or negatively when there is change. So always give change a time. Now, I don't look at these as coup d'etats. I christen them as, in my own terminology, the litany for breakthrough for Africa. These are not coups. These are litanies for breakthrough for Africa. It's self-realization, and it must come from somewhere. It must begin from somewhere. Even in Burkina Faso today, as we speak, the Russians are in Burkina Faso. They are there today, Burkina Faso. You know, as Professor P.L.O. Lumumba always put it, when the Europeans are involved in wars, they'll give it very good names. World War I, World War II. But in actual fact, those are European tribal wars. So too is happening in Africa. The Africans are picking up consciousness. There's a high degree of which Africans today speak about their continent compared to 20 years ago. There's a higher degree. And everybody is buoyant for change. And even if it comes through, which means we first give them a chance. Give time to evaluate the positivity and negativity of change. That's what is in Africa. The Africans are gaining themselves. Europe only became the way it is today thanks to revolutions. There must be shake up, negatively or positively, for a country to build on. England became a source of tranquility after the 1688 revolution, glorious revolution in England, and became the epicenter of Europe because there was a revolution. And after a revolution, there's always positive as well as negative impacts. So let's give time for these people who have taken over to read from their political barometer of transformation what they can offer to that population.
Let's move over to Elijah Enoaku and get his perspective on that. Hey, Elijah, you there? Want to get your own view on this?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I get you 5 on 5. Want to get your view on this? It's true that we are not going to really dive into this topic deeply, but because, as you know, our time is not on our side. But of course, let us handle it. We'll do it deep today. The other time we'll go deeper, and then some other time it'll be deepest.
Correct. And I've heard the various speakers talk about the African consciousness. It's a wonderful and good thing for this young group of Africans who are coming up with that consciousness. But I want us to be a little bit careful here. let's look a little bit at what happened in Burkina Faso. And there's a lesson there for our great nation, Cameroon, to learn. This is what happened. Monsieur Ndor, or Mr. Ndor as they call him, decided to go for a military strategy to fight the jihadists. The young man who is now Monsieur Henry, who is now the president, told him that a military strategy is not going to resolve the problem with the jihadists. The president Kabore insisted on that. And then what happened? They sent the military people to the, I think to the northern side where they are fighting the war. Within a week, 50 military people were killed. It angered the military. This is the genesis of the problem in Burkina Faso, gentlemen, so that we understand the concept of what is happening there. When it angered the military decided to take matters into their hands. What was happening here? There was an old fox playing a game at the background, as the old fox that you guys have been calling here Mr. Franks. That is the people that have been manipulating African politics and keeping Africa where they are up till today. Let's call it spade a spade. We talk about Mali. You guys just recently talked about Mali and what's happening in Mali. We saw exactly what happened there, that the same French that we are talking about are comfortable with the dictator in charge, but they are not comfortable with the dictator in Mali. Why is that? Because their interest is at risk. But here is where we, the young Pan-Africans, run a risk here. You cannot rob Peter to pay Paul. While you are fighting against the French and you are bringing in the Russians, be careful, because it can become even more tricky and dangerous to send out the Russians. That's the same thing that's happening in Central African Republic. The Russians have come in and they are taking in and doing what missionaries are doing and going after the population to kill in order to get the minerals. The same thing happened in Guinea. You saw when the war in Guinea started, you saw the prices of bauxite skyrocketed to a 10-year high. Why? Because they are not after, the common man, they are after the minerals. So while we are being conscious, we jubilate that, they are taking out dictators, let us be wary of what kind of change we are going in for. Because, gentlemen, you might actually rob Peter and you're trying to pay Paul at the same time. So these issues in Africa, yes, they do awaken our consciousness. They make us, we want to take our continent back. But how are we doing it? It becomes a tragedy when a military coup is celebrated in place of democracy. It becomes a tragedy when Buhari of 1984 is being celebrated over the Buhari of 2022. It becomes a tragedy when people come out of the streets and blood has been shed and they're celebrating that. Why? Africans want liberation. But what kind of liberation are we hunting for? As Pan-Africanists, let's examine where we are failing. We are not having local solutions to local problems. We are trying to import international solutions to our own local problems. That is where the Pan-Africanists might be failing today. Because, just like Dr. Ako said, who is behind those coups? We do not know. We don't want to point fingers. But what happens when a coup happens here and is being condemned, and then a coup happens in another country is being celebrated? That tells you that the old fox is playing a game somewhere in the background that we need to be careful of when we start celebrating military juntas and what they are doing. It might not actually work for our interests. What I want this Pan-Africanists of today to work on is to see how we can liberate ourselves from that mentality that we think that it is the West that has to come and dictate for us what we need to do in Africa. That is the Pan-Africanism that I want us to think about and work on. Not the Pan-Africanism that because, a wicked leader or a dictator has been overthrown and then we are jubilating. It is not Pan-Africanism to say democracy does not work in Africa. Democracy works in Africa, but what kind of democracy? Is it imported Western democracy or African local democracy? Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to tell, a gentleman, there's no lady on studio, pardon me. The problem, just 1 second before we go. 1 second before I go. I want to just mention that because the way the problem in Mali is being resolved now is being resolved by a traditional leader. one of the most powerful traditional leaders who has remained neutral in politics all his life. He is the one resolving the issue between France and the military junta right now. He's trying to bring all the factions together. That is something that we can learn in Cameroon. When our traditional values are being trampled upon and we are trying to import Western democracy into our nation is failing, whether it is a junta or a democracy. As long as we do not bring local solutions to local problems, the African Pan-Africanism that we are talking about will remain a Western idea and not an African idea.
Elijah Enoaku, I want to, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you guys understand. I'm sure this is a whole topic on its own, but we couldn't handle only this topic. We had controversy of AFCON, football is going on. And I'm sure too that our management will understand. We've been able to get into at least 5 minutes. We started 15 minutes late, so we had 5 extra minutes. We're going to fix that next time. Emmanuel, I want to thank you so much. I think we'll come back to this topic. Thank you so much for coming, Emmanuel.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Mali is speaking. Guinea is speaking. Burkina Faso is speaking. Read the language. Follow them.
Waingeh Ferdinand, thank you so much for coming, and I'm seeing you bubbling. There was a lot of fast in you. Please bear with us. We have to end the program. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure, and of course, shout out to all Cameroonians as we go out to see what happens. And happy birthday too.
Oh, thank you Waingeh Ferdinand. Dr. Ako, John Ako, we've not used even 0.1% of the knowledge you brought to the studio, but I'm sure you've understood the situation.
I believe it is time constraint, and at times we just have to respect other programs. It is nice being here, and we'll continue to speak for Africa. It is our own, it is our duty.
Labaran Bekondo, we thank you so much for your input.
It's always a pleasure being here and to share with other Africans who are in other parts of the continent. This topic was very sensitive, and I'm pleased this topic should come again.
It's going to come back as a full topic. Thank you so much, Mr. Elijah Enoaku. Normally, we handle one topic at show, but today, because of the AFCON, and this topic too was also very hard, we had to take 2, and we've not been able to manage our time well, but we know that our technicians have understood. The program was produced by Ewane, Nolinga, with his technical crew in the background, the cameraman and the cameraman and the video editors. It was coordinated by Coup with the general supervision of Brian Tambe. At the microphone for presentation, I am Boh Elvis, thanking you for watching, and see you next week for another edition of 90 Minutes in Africa. God willing, bye-bye.